Hello and welcome to In the Channel from channelbuzz.ca, bringing news and information to the Canadian IT channel community for the last 16 years. I'm Robert Dutt, editor of channelbuzz.ca and your host for the show. Today I'm joined by Chris Fabes, who's just a couple of weeks into his new role as president of TD SYNNEX Canada. Now, TD SYNNEX is of course the largest technology distributor in the world, and the Canadian operation has been a fixture of this channel for decades. But this is a transition moment. Mitch Martin ran the Canadian business for more than 35 years, starting out with Maricel Canada, through the SYNNEX acquisition, the pandemic, mergers with Westcon, finally the merger with Tech Data, all of it. He retired earlier this year and TD SYNNEX went outside the organization for his replacement. They found Chris Fabes at SHI International, where he was running the Canadian operation. Before SHI, he spent a decade at Lenovo Canada, where as the channel chief, he tripled channel revenue to $1.2 billion in 3 years. And before that, he started his career as a reseller. So he's one of the very few people in the industry who've held senior leadership roles on the reseller side, the vendor side, and now the distributor side. A 360-degree view that I think is worth exploring. We talked about what he's seeing in his first 2 weeks, what partners should expect from TD SYNNEX Canada under his leadership, the Quebec market, which he calls home, AI, program simplification, and why he thinks the Canadian channel ecosystem should be, in his words, proud and loud. Let's get right into it. My chat with Chris Fabes. Chris, thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I also appreciate it.
Pretty epic way to get the distributor side of things on your channel bingo card, having already done the reseller solution provider and vendor side. Congrats on the new gig, and I guess in general, kind of your thoughts on taking over the leadership of TD SYNNEX Canada at this moment.
No, I appreciate that. And look, how could I not be excited? It's an incredible opportunity. As you mentioned, I've been on the vendor side as well as the value-add reseller side, but distribution is definitely not new for me. I've been working with TD SYNNEX for many, many years in different capacities. So it's exciting having known the organization, knowing a lot of the people, and just quickly being pulled into internal and external conversations about, hey, what can we go do to go big? So it's just really exciting, and I couldn't be happier.
As we touched on there, you've had senior leadership roles, reseller side, most recently SHI, the vendor side with Lenovo, and now you're adding the distributor side, a perspective that, not many people have at the senior level, especially. How's seeing that ecosystem from all three of those sides changed about what you think a distributor, what a distributor actually needs to do for partners?
So I think it gives me a perspective that is rather unique. I always like to look at what is the market asking of the channel ecosystem, and for each of those components, where do we add value and how do we focus on the outcome that our customers, vendor partners, and the ultimate end user are looking for. So, and I think we can all agree that well, technology, the whole industry is an exciting place to be. And I think we'd be doing something different if we all wanted things to be simple. So the pace of change, the pace of innovation is really exciting. And I think with all of the growth and now complexities built into the ecosystem, distribution plays an even more pivotal role in being able to service the demand. And that's what's really exciting looking at the future.
At Lenovo, one of your signature achievements of your team was tripling channel revenue to $1.2 billion over the course of 3 years. What was the thesis and the plan behind that growth in that time? And is any of that transferable to the distributor context where you're one step further removed from the end customer?
I think it absolutely is relevant and it aligns. It all starts with it's planning around what the expected demand is and making sure that the differentiation, the capabilities are aligned with that opportunity. So even answering your question about looking at from a Lenovo side of things, it was where's the appetite, where are the routes to market, How do we pull the levers at the right times? How do we make sure that we're talking to the customers, being the channel partners, as well as the end customers, so that we can pivot as required? And looking at the distribution side of things, it's really no different. It really is in the Canadian market. Where is the spend coming from? Who is touching those spend requirements? And how do we participate in a meaningful way where we're adding value to the equation?
You spent a decade at Lenovo on your way up, literally working your way up the organization. How does that kind of ground level experience shape your leadership style? And what are you looking for in teams you're building now?
Great question. I've always looked at myself as being someone that respects people at all levels. I don't see myself any different from anyone else in any organization. So I really seek to understand, look to build relationships, listen first. I lead with trust, which I think allows you to operate with very low friction, allowing people to perform at their best levels, and making sure that I celebrate success along the way, but also hold people accountable. And it's been fun being able to work for people, and then have a flip side relationship as I was able to grow into different leadership positions. And being humble and respectful of all those relationships, I think has benefited as I've moved in positions where the relationships, even if they might be different now, very, very much respectful. I'm happy for them. They're happy for me. And look, we have a short memory when we want it to be short, but long when it matters. And in this channel, being that it's large yet very small at the same time, leaving those relationships better off has been a part of the way I've looked at people.
Okay. I asked you a little while ago, kind of your perspective on what your time on the vendor side, what you can bring from that to the distributor side of things. Sort of the same question, but coming at it from your more recent point of view, from the reseller VAR point of view at SHI, a massive reseller. What did your time there teach you about where distribution adds value, where it doesn't, and kind of what you wanted from distribution when you were in that seat?
Sure. There were a lot of conversations. So most of my conversations at that point was either internal around building strategy. I think we've touched on that quite a bit. But the other side was just talking with CIOs, CEOs, and VPs that were responsible for technology decisions. And the technology decisions almost became the easy part. It was, where can you help me around optimization? Where can you help me on cash flow? How can you do things that are lower friction? What happens when something might not be going perfect? Is there an escalation path, so process? That's what I started to learn and be able to apply to that business. And again, I think having that lens of those customer expectations, understanding the flow down through the complete channel ecosystem, allows me to look at distribution from a strategy and execution combined with the ultimate goal of satisfying those that are ultimately deploying the technology, being those SMB, mid-market, enterprise, or large public sector.
Mitch Martin ran this business for 35 plus years. That's a pretty extraordinary tenure, and went through pretty wild changes in the industry and in the organization in particular. What do you see as the foundation that he left there, and what do you see, especially in your early days there, as the biggest opportunities for fresh investment, for new ideas?
I respect the legacy. That's first and foremost. And the conversations leading up to this discussion, Rob, as well as the first couple weeks of talking with the staff, what I recognize is there was a strong hand on the business. The foundation was strong, mature, very well operated. But that doesn't mean we still can't look at areas of opportunities, the nuances, the incremental spends, how we bring additional value. So I'll be spending my time, again, respecting the mature foundation, the expertise that already exists in the business, listening, having an open mind, but looking at that 3-5 year future of, where does TD SYNNEX need to be based on the market appetite, and how can we be the best partner for our customers and vendors? And that's really the direction that I'm taking. And I want to underscore that in speaking to many people in my first days, it was so incredible to hear the tenure, the 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, more than 30, and the passion that they've had as they've gone through their career with TD SYNNEX through multiple mergers, acquisitions. But what they had shared with me was just the trust and the love in the organization and the people. And I consider myself very lucky to be taking that baton and moving forward with it.
TD SYNNEX is the largest distributor in the world, and the competitive landscape is shifting. You've got Ingram as the other big traditional broadline kind of folks, and you're both redefining yourselves in your own ways. As always, there are specialists and newcomers. You've got cloud marketplaces, you've got distributors under other names. I guess I'm curious, where do you think, from where you sit now, that TD SYNNEX needs to differentiate itself most urgently to stand out along with the scale in the current marketplace?
We're absolutely looking at how do we maintain a position of leadership, and that comes down to understand the market, understanding our competition, respecting our competition. And those are going to be very much the conversations we'll be having in terms of how is the ecosystem changing? How is the appetite for technology changing? Are we in a position to meet the demand, but also accelerate the demand? So we'll be looking at that. Obviously, there's been several tailwinds driving the appetite for various technologies, but there's also been headwinds where budgets have shifted in how the spend is being distributed. So there'll be that tick-tock cycle of how we look at the opportunities and how we partner, who we partner with, and make sure that we're positioned to grow at scale, but continue to take a leading position.
The press release that announced your arrival at TD SYNNEX, emphasized enterprise and public sector. Those are areas that you focused on at SHI. Curious, is that sort of a signal that that's an area where we're going to see TD SYNNEX push harder in Canada, or more reflective of your background in recent history?
So I don't think we don't want to read into maybe my background, and there's no assumptions that I'll take what I was doing and immediately deploy something like that in this new structure. But where I think there is an opportunity is looking at the I guess the buying flow of goods, and where in the Canadian market we expect to see the need for services, partnerships, guidance. So there have been several announcements within Canada where there's going to be increased spend in certain industries. Use defense as one. We can call that the broader public sector. We also continue to see from an ICT spend that security remains a high priority across the country, as well as the continued investment and maturity and readiness in the infrastructure stack. So I'll be looking at that. Ultimately, Rob, it's what is driving that demand. And I think to your question, just having an ear to the market, that's what I will be doing. And ultimately, I will be looking at the segmentation and how we best support the customers and partners.
TD SYNNEX's operational heart, the offices of both legacies, of basically all of the legacy sides of the companies that have come together over the years to become TD SYNNEX, if you think back at it, are GTA, typically western side of the GTA. And you're out of Montreal. I'm curious how you're thinking about the geographic business of the Canadian business writ large, and with your presence in La Belle Province, is there an opportunity to lean harder into Quebec and the Francophone market?
Absolutely. The Quebec market is booming. It's very attractive for us to continue to focus on the areas of growth. We will be taking obviously a national approach, but it's important that each market, depending how you define it, has its nuances, has its differences. And yes, we have the most of our team members within Central Canada, being west side of Toronto. But we'll be looking at where the demand is, and I'm lucky enough to be in Montreal and speak both official languages. And I look forward to working with our Quebec partners and vendors to understand if there's any areas of opportunity that we can help them with and address. So to answer your question, it's still very broad-based. We have to do it in a very intentional way, but it probably won't hurt that I am local. It probably won't hurt that I was born and raised here. Understand the market, understand the people, and I'll be able to spend a little bit more time.
As we speak, you're 2 weeks into the role. As this airs, it'll probably be more like 3. Grizzled veteran territory. Clearly, can you tell me a little bit about kind of what you've been focused on for that first fortnight in the role, and kind of what you've heard from the crew, from resellers, from vendors, the whole community?
It's been nothing but positive. And if my wife was here, she would confirm the conversations that she's overheard. I probably shouldn't have brought her into it, but I did anyways. But I say that because I want this to be very intentional and honest in my response. Whether it be the folks that I've worked with in the industry, whether it be the customers that we serve, or whether it be the staff that I now have the opportunity to work with, has been very, very positive. I was in the Mississauga office for the past few days. I intentionally spent multiple hours walking the floor, shaking hands with all of our people, asking for feedback, but also early meetings with some of our customers and partners, and just making sure that they know that the team that they're used to working with, there's nothing that has changed. The leadership of Tech Data, or TD SYNNEX, going forward, I am the type of person that I want to listen, learn, be involved. I think what's really important is my goal is for as many of our vendor partners and customers, the value we can bring, it scales when we understand their business. So I personally will hold my team accountable to understand the business drivers of our partners and customers. And I will personally make sure that I'm involved in those conversations, in those plannings, the good, the bad, so that I have a pulse on what's expected of us, so that there's no assumptions. It's really decisions, and go forward is going to be rooted on reality and relationships.
Last month at Channel Next Central, you talked about MSPs as AI ambassadors for 1 million or more Canadian SMBs. Now you're running the biggest distributor in the country. How do you enable that? What's the distributor's role in making MSPs successful as AI adoption accelerates and customers start, especially SMB customers, start looking for more on that front?
Absolutely. There's going to be some additional opportunities to look at how we provide services to the broader MSP market, how we make sure that there's an opportunity to serve them in the infrastructure build out. And there's a real conversation around the FinOps change between whether it be consumption or traditional SaaS moving to tokenomics. I think we as a distributor have an opportunity to listen, adjust, and build supporting models that support their build out. So I'll be sitting down and talking with more of them and capturing what their needs are. We already do have programs in place to be able to support the MSPs in Canada. So we'll continue to engage on a one-off or through, as we get together with them through our partner link events, and continue to build out what the model is and how we support them.
Internally, we touched on with the last question, AI, and I'm curious from your perspective. All the distributors are trying to build the business of the future around what AI will mean to the kind of data you can provide to your customers, to the kind of data you can provide your vendors, to the way you all bring that all together and surface opportunities better, faster, stronger, etc. Curious your assessment of TD SYNNEX's stature in that race at this moment, and where you see the biggest opportunities for next steps?
I would say, just honestly, I need to spend more time understanding where TD SYNNEX is from an AI perspective. It'll take a little bit more time, and I say that with honesty because my message to the team is that I need to observe and understand the ins and outs of our business, whether it be the strategy, the execution, what has an opportunity for pivot or adjustment. But what I will say broadly, the appetite, of course, for AI is absolutely there, and it requires a lot of readiness. And each of our customers are at different stages of how they're engaging with their end users or how they're applying AI into their business. So it again will meet you where you are, but it is going to be a broad view of, is this a services readiness? Is it policy, governance, compliance, where we can help at scale? Or is it a modernization around infrastructure, whether it can be your security posture or your data modernization? So we will have to understand and be, I would say, very dynamic in the way that we support the different customers, again, based on where they are, flowing down to how they support the end user customer, and making sure that we're very much aligned to the core and emerging vendors that support the application layer, the infrastructure layer, the power layer of AI. And we'll make sure that we are absolutely ready and take a leading position, because the opportunity is insatiable in terms of obviously the revenue spends, but most critically is how do our partners, our customers, and their customers use AI to increase their competitive edge, increase optimization of X, Y, or Z, and we'll be right there beside them.
Back to your Lenovo days, another one of your big projects was simplifying the channel program. Deadpan simple was a phrase I think you like to use at the time. Distribution programs tend to be on the complex side, probably because they need to be, because there's a lot of moving pieces, a lot of players involved. I'm curious if you see a simplification opportunity program-wise and go-to-market-wise for TD SYNNEX Canada, and what that kind of discipline or rigor can look like at the distribution side versus the vendor side.
In the early feedback that I've already received from our customers, what they focus on is the execution. While maybe there's a lot of moving parts, if we make sure that we execute and communicate seamlessly, that's the experience that our customers are getting. Is there an opportunity for me to go validate your statement? Absolutely, and I will. But it will be a focus of, how do we make sure we're bringing the outcomes? How do we make sure that we have operational excellence? And how do we make sure that we are bringing value to our customers? So I don't have a future statement. It will be definitely something that I'll be looking at over time. But yes, given that we are providing services to our customers, we have to make sure that our platforms and programs are best in class if we want to continue to take a leading position in the various areas of the channel ecosystem. And I'll be very close to the planning and the strategy with the team.
You've been in this community for 2 decades and have been involved with organizations that are US headquartered, but Canadian operations. What do you see as the big differences between the Canadian channel ecosystem and the US? And what do American headquartered companies get wrong or misunderstand about the Canadian market, especially the channel side of things?
Well, we had this conversation as I was coming into this opportunity, and it was absolutely, and part of the reason why this is very much attractive, or was attractive for me, is that there is a respect and understanding of how the regions operate. So having leadership and teams that understand our market, our ecosystem, what makes things move forward was absolutely important and respected. And that to me is exciting. But at the same time, when you look at organizations that can centralize resources, apply the scale at not just North American, but global, and then bring that to arguably a smaller market that is Canada, that then allows us to speak with our customers with a much bigger toolkit and a much more powerful ability to apply those outcomes. So I think there is a really interesting balance at TD SYNNEX as it relates to the centralized function and capabilities of a larger organization, but the regional focus and ability to execute based on what the local market desires. And you touched on it when you asked me the question about the Quebec market. That's the perfect example of understanding you have central, west, east, but also some language nuances. We will be very close to the market, but we will leverage all of the support and resources that we can.
So it sounds like it's a matter of finding the right balance between run everything Canadian and sort of the global playbook adopted for local use.
Absolutely. We can learn from anywhere in the world, whether it be at a technology level, a thought leadership level, a deployment of X technology level. So I'm a big fan, and I always look for best practices. As some people would say, shamelessly borrow, and you apply it to the market. So I think there's magic in being open-minded, collaborative, but not losing sight of what's expected locally.
So starting to wrap it up and sum things up, I guess it's just generally what you touched on this obviously throughout the conversation, but what can Canadian VARs, MSPs, solution providers, all the folks who you are selling to expect from yourself and from the team at TD SYNNEX going forward?
Expect us to be collaborative. Yes, I did touch on it before, and I really mean it. This is just the way I operate, and this is what I'll hold the team accountable for. Is we are a partner, and a partner doesn't tell the other partner this is how you need to do it without listening or understanding. So it is going to be a very collaborative process. I want to be engaged. I want to hear. I expect that of the team. And we are going to win together. That's really the only way that we can go do it. So that's what you can expect going forward. And I wouldn't say that's necessarily changing anything from the past, but speaking on behalf of myself, I'm just very, very much excited. And the only thing that I can control is the way that I show up. And that is a commitment that I have to both our team here in Canada or those more broadly that support the Canadian market, as well as our customers and partners, is that engagement, the interest in growing, doing it in the right ways, and being very intentional in how we go about our data.
And one last one, mostly just for fun, but also kind of serious. You know, if you could wave the proverbial magic wand to change one thing about how the Canadian channel works today, what would it be?
About how the Canadian channel works, I would say the people and the execution, the level in which the Canadian market has arguably, from time to time in certain areas, outperformed other areas of the channel ecosystem. I think the Canadian ecosystem should be proud and should be loud in terms of the accomplishments that we've been able to achieve. And I look forward to being part of that maybe voice that we can further raise within the local community.
All right. So just be louder and keep doing it better. Sounds great. Chris, good luck with the new role, and look forward to keeping track of you and things going on at TD SYNNEX. And thanks once again for taking the time to chat.
Thanks, Rob. I appreciate it. I enjoyed the conversation and look forward to connecting again soon.
There you have it, Chris Fabes from TD SYNNEX Canada. I'd like to thank Chris for taking the time just 2 weeks into a new job to sit down and talk about where he's been and where he thinks TD SYNNEX Canada is headed. Really appreciate his candor around AI. He basically says, still learning where we're at, which is a lot more credible in week 2 than a rehearsed vision statement might have been. And I think his challenge to the Canadian channel to be proud and loud about what this ecosystem has built is worth thinking about. There are a few things I'm going to be watching for as he settles in. Whether TD SYNNEX makes a real push into Quebec now that they've got a bilingual Montreal-based president, what a program simplification effort might actually look like given his history of stripping complexity out of partner programs, and how he thinks about the distributor's role in a world where more and more transactions are moving through non-traditional models, like cloud marketplaces. If you enjoyed this episode, really appreciate it if you followed or subscribed to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, most of the major podcast directories. And if you have a moment to leave a rating or review, we appreciate it. Till next time, I'm Robert Dutt for channelbuzz.ca, and I'll see you in the channel.